We'd like to welcome you to the 2017-2018 Club 1 volleyball season. My name is Bree Isaacson, and I am the director of the Club 1 program.
And my name's Bridget Hack, and I'm the business manager.
And essentially what we want to do today is we put together this online video to help our families learn a little bit more about our program and touch on several parts of it: the practice schedule, the tournament schedule, tuition, uniform, things like that. So our families kind of know what's going on and have a better idea. And then, after you watch this video, if you have any questions or just something isn't clear, please feel free to reach out to Bridget or myself, and we'd be able to, answer anything we haven't to this point. So first, we're going to just talk about registrations. Once your daughter has decided to play for the program, she needs a current USAV membership. And, all of you either have one from last year, which is set to expire at the end of October, or you did the tryout membership, or maybe you have one from another club. So once, you've decided to play for Club 1, you need to make sure that you register or update your membership to make you current through this year. And it's what allows us to put you on rosters for different tournaments and events that we play in. So prior to this first practice and the start of the season, you'll need a current USAV membership. Some teams will need an AAU membership, and that membership is $14. And then everybody will need all current forms on file and registration set through Sport Engine. And Bridget will kind of take you through that process. But just so you kind of have a heads up, once we get through the tryout, once we get through the parent meeting, Bridget will reach out about what's missing. But just so everyone knows, all paperwork must be submitted and all registrations must be complete prior to the start of the first practice. So in talking about practices are going to begin for the youth program the week of November 13th. Our 12 and 13U programs practice 2 times per week, and our 14U program practices 2 times during the week, and then 1 time on weekends. Only on weekends you don't play. So if this upcoming weekend you have a tournament, that's sort of your 3rd day of the week. If your team is off, then you would have a practice, so you would get 3 that week because you did not compete on the weekend. So just so everybody kind of understands that. We do ask that our athletes arrive to practice 15 minutes before practice starts. This allows them to get ready for practices and be able to start on time, so we maximize our practice time. We do understand, I'm a mom, I have 4 kids running in crazy directions, as is Bridget, that sometimes you get home from work late or things like that, especially with an earlier practice time slot. So we do ask, if you're going to be late, that you just communicate that. We do understand, but if at all possible, obviously we want to be there a little bit early so that we're ready. Once team selections are made and you know who your child's coach is, they can communicate with them directly. In the meantime, you could reach out to Bridget or myself, and we'd be more than happy to pass that along. And that would be no different than if you were late or if you were going to be absent from practice. So if you're going to miss or something happens, we would, hope that you could do the same as well. At Club 1, you're allowed 3 excused absences, and those absences can be used for whatever you want. They can be used for study days, for grandma's birthday. They could be used for illness. Once you go beyond the 3 absences, what we ask is that our families do their best to make up the practices. And the rule of thumb with that is that they need to make them up on an age division higher than the one that they're in, or in an age division higher than the one that they're in. So if you're a 12, you would try to make it up with the 13s. If you're a 13, you try to make it up with the 14s. And that just ensures they get what they missed, from the practices. So if you have something where someone's, sick for a long period of time, certainly that exceeds the norm, and Bridget and I will work with you on that. And then the other exception to that is multiple sport athletes, and I'll touch base on that. So if for some reason you were to exceed the 3, and someone wasn't showing up for practice, which Bridget and I feel really good that doesn't happen very often for us, but if that should happen, it could affect playtime. But in most situations, or I guess in all situations, that really hasn't happened, as long as we just have great communications with our families and our coaches. Athletes are required to practice in a Club 1 t-shirt, spandex, knee pads, socks, volleyball shoes, hair back, shirt tucked in. So for our new families, if you don't have a Club One t-shirt, any athletic t-shirt will do. And then once you get your Club One t-shirts, then obviously it would be the expectation that those are worn. Any returning Club One family, you would just wear your old Club One t-shirts until you receive your new ones. When we start practices in November, team selections are not made at that time. And the reason we do that is because we just have that one day of tryouts. And so, we're going to give people a little bit more time to kind of get, back in touch with their skills and get comfortable and work on different positions that they play. So we'll make team selections probably 2 or 3 weeks into the season. So just so everyone kind of knows when to expect that. And then once those selections are made, coaches' information and things like that will get emailed out to you so you can communicate directly with your coach as well. And then the only other thing that I want to touch base with on practices is this year we're really excited to have 2 practice locations less than a mile apart. We have our Club One location that's on 143rd Street, and then we also took over using Monday through Thursday the Plainfield Community Church that's right off of Route 59, like I mentioned, less than a mile from Club One, and we'll be able to use both of those facilities to kind of spread out a little bit. So we're super excited. We will communicate your exact location once we kind of get through this process. So you'll know whether you're at Club One or you're at the church, and it will be consistent for you throughout the entire season. At Club One, as many of you know, when we have teams practicing, we also have training going outside the court. So the teams that are going to practice after the youth athletes are kind of doing their cardio and things like that. So we're pretty tight in the gym. So what we say to our families is if you want to watch, we open up the first Monday of every month or the first practice day of the month for you to come in and check us out. And we kind of plan accordingly. At the church, they're giving us several courts, and there is a small viewing area in addition to tables and chairs, and then there's internet over there. So if you choose to stay and you're able to see your daughter practice, awesome. And we always take great pride in what we do, and we want our families to see. Just at Club One, it's just a little bit tight, and we simply don't have the space. So if you'd like to come in and check it out, then feel free to do that. We just ask that you do that on the first practice day of the month. And then if something else is going on or you need, to see something, or feel free to reach out, and Bridget and I, and we can certainly accommodate that. As I talked about briefly before, multiple sport athletes. We take great pride at Club One in allowing our youth athletes and our high school athletes to be involved in more than just one sport. We feel like at this time, especially at this age with this group, people don't even know yet what they're going to do for sure. So what our general rule of thumb is that if you're going to, be on another sports team, or you have a program at school, you're participating in something like that, that you just have really great communication with your coach to let them know of any potential conflicts, and that you make as great an effort to be with us as you do with the other team or program you're involved in. And we've done this for many, many years, and it's worked out really, really well for us. And we're super excited to see our kids out in the community doing other things. But we just ask that you communicate, that we have great communication, maybe, in advance, so that everybody can plan accordingly. And one thing we always say too, and parents ask if this is okay, so if I just touch base on this, people say, well, I can only make it for like the last 30 minutes of the practice, or I can only come for 30 minutes and then I have to leave. We get it. So if you can come for any amount of the practice and then you got to run on to your next thing, please feel free and to do that. We'd love to see you in the gym, even if it's for a small amount of time. All right, so as we move on, I'm going to go ahead and touch on tournament information, and that's always a big one for people. When are we playing? How does it work? So here's some general information about tournaments. The tournament season begins in January, so November and December are training months for us only. So in January through the end of May or beginning of June, you will play on average 2 times per month. It's tournament format. There are no single game matches. We do our very best to spread out the tournaments, but we do just want to let our families know that we are at the mercy of the host sites, and so we can only pick what's given. So we will take a look, and we've done a great job spreading them out. We really haven't had any problems doing that, but over however many years, has there ever been a year where there was a little bit less offered one month and a little bit more offered another? There has. So you can plan on playing on average 2 times per month, January through that first weekend of June. We will get that tournament schedule out shortly after we get through the parent meeting, and we'll get that practice schedule out, and we're still working out the details as some tournament host sites are still putting out the events that they're going to offer for the season. What we ask, a general rule of thumb, is that you arrive 1 hour before you play for a tournament, 45 minutes before you officiate. So if you play at 9, you got to be there at 8. If you ref at 9, you got to be there at 8:15. Your coach will communicate that with you for every tournament that you play in. And the other thing that we think is important for you to know is oftentimes tournament host sites don't put out their tournament start time until the Wednesday before. And the reason that they do that is because teams add and drop all the time. So when you get your tournament schedule, you would know, hey, I'm playing on October 1st. But you may not know what time you play on October 1st until the Wednesday before. And as soon as we get that information, we blast it out to our coaches as well as our families. But just so you kind of have a heads up that it might be a little bit closer to the event date till you know the time. And once we have it, we'll be sure to share. A friendly reminder that all athletes must stay till all officiating and playing duties are complete. So if you guys have to stay after a tournament and officiate, just know everybody's going to have to stay. Once all the responsibilities of the team are done, you are free to go. We ask that you respect the food policies of each host site. I can tell you that in 20 years of coaching club volleyball, I have never gone anywhere where they've allowed you to bring in outside food. So there's two things you can do. Number one, you can eat the food that they have there, and many places do have good choices. Or two, you can pack your own lunch, and all we ask is that you eat it in the car or outside of their facility. Should your daughter have a food allergy that prevents her from eating the foods that are offered, please reach out to Bridget or myself, and we'll send an email over to the host site and try to work something out with them where they either give you a card that you keep with you to show people that you're allowed to eat outside food, or they sometimes have a separate sitting area, or whatever the case is. But once we know, we'll communicate with those host sites and get back to you immediately. When we talk about going to tournaments, the subject of playing time always seems to come up, so we're going to touch base on that. Coaches determine what position and how long your child plays. Certainly, they're in practice with them every day, and they know kind of what's working and where your daughter can be the most successful. With that said, in our youth program, we don't ever form teams where kids don't ever have an opportunity to play, because we know that they're going to learn the most from training in our gym, and then they're going to reinforce what they're learning in tournament play. We also know that they love the tournaments the most. So certainly we want to give them an opportunity to learn all the skills, but with having more than 6 players on a team, not everyone is going to get the same amount of play time, and we're going to teach them rotations and positions and multiple positions. And so when we look at this, we're going to certainly give them all the opportunities to get play time, but being completely fair, I don't know that it will ever be 100% equal. So we know that we need to continue to develop all the skills at the youth level. If for some reason there's a problem with playtime and your child, or you become unhappy or you don't understand, or maybe they had a different role at the beginning of the season than they do at the end, we ask that first you encourage your daughter to talk to their coach directly, because that's really where the answer lies. And so we ask that first. And then after a little bit of time, if you've done that and then it's not really getting any better, or you're still having some of the same concerns, you can request a meeting with the coach and your daughter, and you three can sit down together to make sure you're on the same page. And worst case scenario, that doesn't solve the problem. We can all sit down together. But one thing that we've learned at the club is that good communication goes a really long way. And there hasn't ever been one time where we've had a situation where we sat down that we weren't able to come to some sort of agreement and better understanding. So we just ask that, you follow the proper command chain. So the only other thing that I want to mention about that is we do enforce a 24-hour rule. I don't know a sports program in 2017 that doesn't, but essentially if you're super upset about something, playtime, a situation that took place, whatever the case is, we ask that you wait 24 hours before reaching out to the coach or Bridget or myself. One thing we have learned is that nothing comes from an angry conversation. And so if we truly want to resolve the issue, we need to just wait till we can get to a place where we can calmly discuss it and then make good decisions moving forward. So if something happens, we do ask that you just wait those 24 hours. One other quick thing, we do mention, in our youth program on what we consider our top team, we do not guarantee playtime. I say that only because we want to ensure that our athletes are working really hard every day, day in and day out. Again, we have situations, where that happens, do kids not get in? Of course not. But we do want to let our families know that if someone isn't working hard or someone isn't showing up to practice, they could get less play time because of that. As I move on, and there's just one other thing I want to mention. I apologize, but I just want to remind our families that our coaches dedicate a lot of hours to our athletes, and many of them do this in addition to a full-time job. And, it's difficult to work all day and then come and work all night. And we take great pride in, developing our athletes both on and off the court. So all we ask is that, you are always respectful to our coaches if there is a situation, because they'll work hard to resolve it, and they'll always be respectful back to your daughter as well. Some parent expectations. This went into our handbook several years ago. I'm just going to throw this out. We feel confident that our families are great people, and we have lots of great stories and fans and sportsmanship, but just a couple things to touch base on, that we ask that our families are respectful of the club, coaches, and players, that they demonstrate good sportsmanship at practices and tournaments, not only to Club One players and families, but other teams, coaches, and officials as well. And I can assure you that you're going to have a bad official over the course of the season. You're also going to have a very good official over the course of the season. But one play or one match doesn't make or break it. And we ask that you're respectful, because at the end of the day, with no officials, we can't play the game. We ask that you support the development of each player and each team, and that you follow the proper chain of command that we discussed before. And then we do put, failure to follow these expectations can be grounds for an athlete's removal. And again, have we had to do that? Of course not. But it is important to put it out there just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. One thing that we do at the club is something called mid-season evaluations. Many of our families have done this before. We will continue with our mid-season evaluation, which will happen at the end of February. But the only thing that we're going to change this year is it will be an electronic document emailed to the families. So instead of having our families come in, sit down for a brief 5-minute conversation, we're just going to go ahead and email it out. It evaluates passing, attacking, defense, serving, attitude. It says one great thing that your child does, one thing that they need to work on, and those will come from the coach to your daughter, or to you in email, whatever they have for you. So if you take a look at it and you're confused by it, or your daughter's telling you one thing and the eval says something else, then feel free to reach out to the coach, because I think they have a great understanding of kind of why they put and when. But just so our families know, as a change, it will no longer be something you come in for. It'll be something that's electronically emailed out to you. As we touch base on travel, our 12U program does not travel. Our 13U and 14U program do one travel event for the year. And you will either go to the MEQ National Qualifier, which is held in Indianapolis, Indiana, or you will go to the Wisconsin Dells. At this time, the Wisconsin Dells have not put out their tournament date yet. However, I can tell you for the past 10 years, it's been in April. So you can kind of plan on that. The MEQ Qualifier put out their dates, and I grabbed those. And for our age division, it would be March 17th through the 19th. So just so you can kind of plan accordingly for that, it would be March 17th through the 19th. That's the only travel trip you will do, and where you are going will be based on what team your daughter is selected on. So you won't know until once team selections are made. As we talk about travel, our athletes stay with our families when they travel. And what will happen is you'll get a travel letter from me. And it'll say, here's the dates. It'll give you some general information, admission ticket prices, things like that. And then I will provide a hotel link for you to properly register. USA Volleyball requires us to stay at a hotel that they select for us. So we don't get a choice, and we can't stay wherever we want to, because essentially what happens is they count the number of room nights, and then that's what, in addition to the tournament fee, accepts us into the event. So you'll get it from me. It will say, hey, we're staying at this hotel. You have from this day to this day to make your reservation, and then you'll just kind of pay for that upon arrival. The only thing that I ask, or that I'd like to mention, is that, pay attention to the tournament or to the hotel's cancellation policy, parking fees, all of those things, because those are things that are out of our control. So just make sure you read, the fine print closely, so you don't end up surprised with something you didn't know. Last couple things that I have, and I think I touch on everything unless Bridget tells me I forgot something. I know I'm long-winded. The last couple of things that I want to touch base on is, number one, spirit wear. People ask us this. We will have spirit wear and we typically do 2 rounds. So people will say, well, we had so many things due at one time, I didn't do it, when are you going to do it again? So we'll try to get 2 rounds out for our families, so you can expect that via email. And then the other couple things I have, number one, all of our important information goes on our website, and it goes on our Facebook page and Instagram and every other social media outlet Bridget and I can figure out. So we will put it out there. The majority of our communication to you comes through Sport Engine. So Bridget will talk to you about that process, but you want to make sure whatever email you have in Sport Engine is current, and it's something you check regularly so you don't miss out on any important information that we're sending out. Last couple things that I have, parking at Club One. You can park on the side where the garages are. You can park in the front where the doors are. If all of those spots are, filled, you can park on 143rd Street, Coyle Plus Drive, which is the street that runs directly behind us. Or you can park in the Public Works building. Just as a heads up, you cannot park in the CrossFit or any of those buildings that are next to us, as your car can be towed. Everybody this year, and we'll talk about this too, we started this last year, everybody needs a ball when they come to a tournament. We will offer balls to our families, a good quality volleyball at a discounted price. If you need one, purchase it. If you don't, bring the one that you have. But athletes will be required to bring a volleyball with them to all tournaments. So just as a heads up to check and see if she has one or if you guys need one. And then, the last thing that I have is last year at the club, we started and we did a camp the week before our youth season started. And the reason that we did that was that our families come to us. There's such a big gap from the time their middle school season ends until the club season begins. And as you guys move on to the high school program, that gets smaller and smaller. So people come to us and say, can we do lessons? What do you have offered at the club right now? My daughter doesn't want to lose her skills from middle school before club. And we feel really fortunate that our coaches right now are out coaching high school volleyball, they're coaching club volleyball or college volleyball, all these different things, and they're staying active and getting better. But it leaves us to not have a ton of opportunities at the club right kind of in this window. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to have a skills camp. This is what we did last year. I just want to kind of put it out there to our families so that they better understand. Anytime we do something new for the first time, we learn, and we just want to make sure that we kind of communicate from what we learned from last year. So the week of November 6th, which is the week before we begin, we will offer a skills camp. Please understand that this is different than the club. It's not required, and there's a fee associated with doing so. And what will happen is we offer it for like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it just allowed our athletes to kind of get back in the gym, freshen up their skills, and feel really good going into the next week when club season started. Please understand that we will offer this again, but this is not mandatory. And when people say it's not mandatory, but it's mandatory, it isn't. And we want our families to know that if your daughter's looking for something to get back in, freshen up her skills, this is a perfect thing for her. But if it doesn't work for your family, you're busy, you have other things going on, there is no penalty in not doing it. So we want to be able to continue to offer things to our families, but we want to be really fair on this. This is a separate program than the club program. So there is a small fee associated with doing it. And if it works for you and you can get in the gym, awesome. And if you can't, we totally understand. And we will use it to help evaluate some of the kids that are in the gym so we can help the team process. But someone who isn't there won't get any less of an opportunity. And it will be only offered to Club One athletes. So, and it'll be run by our coaches for each of those age divisions. So just putting it out there to our families. We were super excited about it last year, but we just want to kind of clear it up so everybody understands why we're doing it and to know there's no pressure either way. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bridget. She's going to talk financials, fundraising, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
And mine is usually shorter than hers, so we're almost there. It's a lot of info, but we really do hope it helps everybody.
And I get faster every year, so just imagine if you're watching this video 10 years ago.
Yeah, or if you have to practice with her and we got to retake it 12 times. But that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to talk about pricing. I'm going to talk about fundraising. I'm going to talk about the steps that you're going to follow afterwards. I'm going to talk about uniforms, all that good stuff. Our price this year for our 12U, the total for their fees is $1,560. That is going to include their tuition and their jerseys that are included, and I'll explain that in just a minute. And for our 13 and 14U, the total fees are $2,060. That's going to include the jerseys. It's going to include the travel fee for the whichever out-of-state tournament they go to, as well as their tuition. I'm going to touch on uniforms first, and then I'll tell you how the payments work. We are sponsored by Nike, so we wear Nike head to toe. And we do work with Nike to try to reuse items so that we can save some costs for our families. And fortunately for this year, we were able to keep the shoes, the warm-up, spandex doesn't change too much, but the spandex and those other items. So everybody is going to be getting the jerseys because those jerseys were not, they're gone this year. Discontinued,
yeah.
couldn't think of the word. And so we can't have some with some and some with the other. So everybody's going to get the jerseys. But if you are a returner to the program and you don't need the shoes, you don't need the spandex, the warm-up still fits, you are not required to buy those items. You can buy just what you need, and if you don't need anything, you're in really, really good shape. You would be set to go. If you are a new family, you would, in fact, then have to purchase those items to complete the package. Nike gives us a flyer. There's a store that you go to with a code, and you will put that code in. You will order the items that you need. They send them to us. I'll separate it out. We hand them out to your daughter. One thing we want to mention is that the turnaround time for ordering the uniform is going to come up pretty quickly, and that's just because we need to get those items to us before they run out of stock. We got to make sure that the things that need to be printed or embroidered get that done. So we don't want you to be caught off guard with that. We want to be upfront with that. So once we get that, we'll send it all out. Please make sure that you look at the due dates and because the store does close, it's very difficult for us to extend it because they too over there need to then order at high quantities for all of our families. So, and not only our club, but every other club in the United States is doing the same thing.
Right. So it's about a week turnaround is typically, we'll get that flyer and then we'll send it out to our families immediately. But it's not long after. We used to, years in the past, do it right at the parent meeting. But they give us a little bit of time, but just so you can kind of put it on your radar.
So you can kind of have an idea. So now going back to the tuition and how that works. We always offer our families different options on how they want to pay their tuition. You can, of course, pay in full, or we do allow families to make up to 5 payments. And last year, if you were with us, there was if you chose to use a credit card, there was a 2.9% processing fee. This fee is no longer going to be charged to our families. So if you were to pay with your credit card, you would not incur the 2.9% fee. Some people like to use the credit card for points, so that would be an option. We always allow our families to have pay offline or with check, but this year it is a little bit different. This year, you have to request from me a discount code. So if you know you want to pay by check before you finish your registration process, you would send me an email. Bridget, I'd like to pay by check. Can I please have the discount code? I would give that to you. You would input it, and then you'd be able to complete the registration without making a payment. If you break down, there's a couple things with fees that I want to cover. If you choose to break the payments into 2, 3, 4, or 5, there is a fee that's associated with payments 2 through 5, and that would be a $35 fee for each of those payments. So if you took your full balance and you decided, I'm going to pay in 5 payments, 20% or a fifth of it would be due upon registration when you register your daughter in the system. And then those additional payments always have the first of the month due date. So 11/1, 12/1, 1/1, and 2/1. If you chose to do it in 2 payments, you'd pay upon completion or registration, and then your balance would be due 11/1. The first payment, regardless if you do 2 or 5, the first payment does not incur the $35 fee. It would just be any payment after that. One thing that is not away from last year is the $1 process fee. That is Sport Engine's fee for your registration in their system. So, for example, if you are a youth 12 and you have $15.60 and you're going to pay that full $15.60 in full, you will pay $15.61 because that's their dollar fee. Every installment that is run through their system incurs that fee. So it could be up to an additional $5, one for each installment. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that and knows how that works.
And do you want to explain? I don't know if you did it, but just that if you do 5, the $1 fees are all assessed at the beginning. Did you say that?
Last year they were assessed at the beginning. What I'm finding this year when I did the boys, because I learn something new every year too, it looks to me like they charge the $1 on each time it's run. But don't be surprised if for some reason, if you do, that's a good point. If you do see a $5 fee at the front, then you just know that each of that dollar fee isn't, they just covered it all at the front. But this year, because we had asked last year, it looks like they've got it corrected so you wouldn't be charged. Because if at any point you decide, hey, listen, I got a big Christmas bonus, I want to pay it off, I know that I would cancel that membership. You could pay it in full, and then you'd save the $1, and you'd save the $35 installment fee or administrative fee. So you have some options there. We do offer, because people do have multiple kids that play in programs, we do offer a discount, a sibling discount. So if you have 2 siblings or 2 children in the program, you would receive a $150 discount. If you had 3 in the program, you would receive $300. 4 in the program would be $450. If you're crazy enough to have 5 or 6, you would get $600. But with that said, again, you need a code to do that. So you would have to email me, hey, Bridget, I'm doing the registration for my 2 children. Can I please get the code? Another thing, because there's always something else, right? If you have 2 youth in the program, so that you have twins, or you have a 12 and a 13, a 12, 14, whatever the combo is, you would get the code now. If you have a high school athlete that's going to be trying out and a youth, the discount's going to apply to the high school athlete because they're not registered yet. So when that time were to come, you'd be like, hey, my daughter's in the 13U program, I'm signing up my 15U, can I please get the discount code for the sibling discount? And then I would pass that along to you. So again, you could do offline, you could do the payment plans, but Sport Engine, and I'll talk about that, is very important to do that so that we could get them in the system and set up. So people ask me, how can I offset my costs? And again, this year, we are going to run a fundraiser that we've been doing for many years, and it's been very, very successful. The way that the fundraiser works is that each athlete sells 10 tickets that are $10 a piece for a total of $100. That goes into a big pot. Cash prizes, first prize $10,000, $2,500 for second, and $1,000 for third place. After you sell your initial 10, everything that you sell goes 100% back to you to help you in offsetting those costs. So if you sell 50 tickets to everybody you know, you take them to work, you take them to Thanksgiving, the whole thing, the first 100 would go to the raffle, and then $400 would come to you in either a refund or a credit if you have a balance on your account, and that would all go back to you 100%. So sell as many as you can if you're interested to do that. The raffle goes all the way usually till the Sunday before our Christmas break starts, and then those refunds and credits are distributed typically at the end of January once all the paperwork is filed and we get the okay to disperse all those payments. So that is one way that you can offset your costs. We realize that there are people that are like, I don't want to do the fundraiser, I've got too much going on, and we do offer and allow you to do an opt-out, which is $75. This year, unlike in the years in the past, one of the steps is going to be online, looking at and initialing the Friends of Powerhouse form, which is our raffle form. If you want, it will give you the option to opt out, and when you click that box, those fees, the $75, would be added to your checkout or you're in your shopping cart. So you don't have to worry about getting a check or a payment, beforehand. It's going to be taken care of right then and there. If you choose to do offline payments, then you would have to include that $75 in the check that you bring for your payments. So that is how our fundraiser works. Kind of wrapping it up in what to expect. You're watching the video because you've probably already seen your daughter's number was selected. So you're watching the first step of our step-by-step registration process. The second step, which is probably the most important after this, because this is giving you all of the information to make your decision, is going to be to email your commitment to me by Monday, October 2nd by noon. And we really are asking that families do that. Even sometimes you think, oh yeah, I'm going to do it, and you forget to do it, but we don't know. And we typically do have people on a wait list that are waiting to see whether or not a spot has opened up for them. So in order to, give them the courtesy to do that, we do ask that you follow that step and get that to me by noon. Same goes as if you watch the video, you talk it over as a family, and you decide that this is not what you are going to commit to, that you send an email just letting us know so we can reach out to the next person so that they can, make a decision for themselves and for their family. You will this year have probably about 8 or so steps. I want to break it down so that everything is very, very easy for you to follow. There will be a link to renew your membership for your USAV membership because everybody has to have that. There will be a link for you to print and fill out the USAV medical form. There'll be 2 different links for JVA forms, and there will be a link for you to print the financial agreement. Those forms will be brought into the parent drop-off, which I'll explain in 1 minute. But last year, all of our paperwork had to be bring in liability forms, powerhouse, all of this stuff, the raffle form. But everything is going to be done online when you register in Sport Engine. However, the financial agreement does need to be printed and brought in with those other forms. So even if you're like, I did this online, you did, but we do need a hard copy attached to your daughter's file. So I'll have it all broken out for you. Sport Engine is super important. That's going to be like your second step after committing to the program, because that's how Bree had mentioned before, all of our communication goes out. So when right away there's info on the uniforms, if you don't get in, you're going to miss some of that stuff. And so it's really important that you get there. In the beginning, we're sending out the stuff on the skills camp, all those things. You don't want to miss out on anything. So you're going to want to get into that just right as soon as you can so that you don't miss out on anything. The drop-off, so now you've completed all of the steps online. And the very last thing it's going to say is that our parent drop-off is on Monday, October 2nd. It's going to be from 5:30 to 7 at the Club One facility on Coil Plus Drive. You can come in anytime in between those hours. You don't have to stay the whole time. Really, if you've printed everything and filled it out, it's a super, super quick process. You're going to just come up to the desk. We will hand out raffle tickets at that time. We'll record them on your daughter's file. We'll collect the correct paperwork. If you're paying by check, you'd be bringing in that check payment, and we would just get you out of there just as quick as we can. But limited copies are brought to the facility, so if you can print them, we really appreciate that, and you would bring that all in. Again, it's just in between those hours, not the full time, and you'll come in, and then we can get everything going, your daughter's file processed, make sure that we go through all that, and we can just get ready to start a great season.
Yeah, we're excited. It comes just as fast as it leaves, and we're back here again, but we're super excited to get started, and we hope we've answered all your questions today. Certainly, if you have any additional, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But most importantly, we'd like to welcome you to the Club One family. See you soon.